What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the High Tempo Sports Podcast. This is episode 213. Today, we are here in the year of 2024. Happy New Year to everyone. Today is January 2nd. I am joined by Willy. What's going on?
Oh, not much.
How was the start of your 2024?
It's been great so far.
I was just going to say, it's for a specific fan
Yep.
base. It has been quite the start of the year. Today, we are here to talk about Week 18 NFL, specifically all of the playoff scenarios, because this is one of the most wide-open playoff brackets we've had going into the final week of the year in quite some years in the NFL. Even up to last week, like a handful of teams were eliminated last week that were still in contention the whole way. Before we do that, though, we got to talk about the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Because it lived up to expectations, and this is exactly why the College Football Playoff Committee picked these four teams.
Yep. I mean, I don't think you could have got two better games than we did last night. I mean, both games came down to the final play. Both were close pretty much the whole game. I mean, a little bit towards the end with the Washington-Texas game, but Texans closed that gap.
Exactly, yeah.
Made it come down to the last play, but those were two great games.
And you hate to bring it up, but you look at the Georgia-Florida State game, and it's like...
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Florida State sat a lot of guys, because it's not as important of a game.
Georgia sat a few guys,
Exactly,
too.
yeah. That was... And I think we all know Florida State would have probably not lost by 60 if they were in the playoff. Yeah, but I don't think we 100% would not have gotten a game like we got these two college football playoff games.
I mean, I think any four of those teams would have beat a fully healthy Florida State team by at least one score.
Yeah.
I think it's a two-score game.
And, there's a lot of Georgia fans I see are upset that, they're clearly better than both Texas and Washington or whatever. I mean, that's just it's so, that's an old conversation.
Yeah, you lost to Bama. Bama lost to Texas. So.
And then Bama also lost to Michigan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that this was, for the final year of the 4-team playoff, the semifinal games were, and they were good last year too.
They were good last year, yes.
But obviously the championship game was, sucked. And I would expect we don't see that in this championship game.
I don't think we do.
Now, obviously, we don't really know. But yeah, it was such a good college football playoff semifinal day. As a Michigan fan, how do you feel beating Alabama?
That was crazy. I still really don't believe it. I mean, It's just it doesn't seem real, even though I watched it and then rewatched it last night. But it's just, it doesn't feel real.
That's
awesome.
Probably the biggest win of your Michigan fandom ever, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you could argue the first Ohio State game,
right?
Because it was so 8
hadn't
straight
beat them
years.
in so long, yeah.
But I think this one tops it all.
Just a bit higher stakes in this one.
Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh, obviously, with all the things that have happened this year, hasn't had much bowl success. 3 straight college football playoffs and both losing in the semifinal the first 2 times. This game was so important.
It was.
And this is one of the better teams that they've had to play. That first year Georgia team obviously is...
it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah, that's the best team. But, coming off of the TCU loss last year, then getting faced up against arguably the second best team in this 4-team playoff in Alabama made this game so important for them.
It did. And with all the stuff happening before in the season, we lose that game, we're frauds. It's just you needed to win. That's a must-win game.
Right. I picked both wrong. My winners were Alabama and Texas.
Obviously I'm going to pick Michigan.
Yeah,
but I was kind of hoping we'd get Washington,
right?
But I thought Texas was going to win.
I did too. I am very upset that I got both of those wrong because I was at the top of my dad's bowl league thing, and I got both of those games wrong. So I'm definitely not going to be there anymore. But yeah, and I think that Michigan Alabama game specifically had the potential to not be a good game.
No,
Michigan probably should have won by a handful of points.
Michigan. Just special teams, just screwing ourselves over so many times.
Especially the last muffed punt. How do you...
that is that could have been a
They could have lost the game on that.
That could have been the most heartbreaking loss ever.
Oh, that would have been
history.
so bad, dude.
A muffed punt safety.
Literally to win the game with 20 seconds left, yeah.
That could have been so bad. But... It was such a good game.
Really good game. Their game plan against Jalen Milroe was really fantastic. Yeah. They limited him.
That's another way. I mean, Michigan comes out and lays an egg and can't contain him. Bama blows Michigan out of the water.
Yeah, especially with the mistakes that Michigan was having in that game. But I mean, defensively, they played a great football game.
First play of the game, JJ throws an interception.
Yeah, that was good. That was pretty crazy.
It was like we're all hype, and all of a sudden, just have it's everyone just kind of like, what the fuck?
And then obviously it was called back, which was very ideal. But yeah, I mean, this was, and I thought, both teams come down and score early. I was like, okay, we're about to see kind of a shootout, which I didn't really expect. And after that, both offenses just really struggled to score. The missed extra point almost became like a huge deal. Obviously, it ended up not mattering.
Yeah.
I
missed field goal.
Yeah, missed field goal.
49-yard field goal. That guy, he makes those.
Yeah, he's been very good all season.
Yeah.
I thought I had the safest bet of the weekend. Alt spread, Bama plus 6.5. It seemed like the most money bet the entire game. And then as soon as I realized it was going to overtime, as soon as I even thought about that being a possibility, I was like, oh, it's not going to hit, dude. It's so not. Oh, it's so frustrating.
I was not confident because I was I'm thinking Michigan gets the ball with a minute left. 2 timeouts I think they had.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, we got to make a run. We got to get a field goal because I do not like Michigan and OT against this team. Because, I mean, our red zone defense is good, but that's when they're just going to run Jalen.
Exactly.
He's just going to run the ball, and I don't know if we're going to be able to stop it. Because, I mean, he was running it pretty decently in that second half.
He was, yeah, definitely. And also, I think it was really important that Michigan got the ball first in overtime because they clearly seem to have the momentum, obviously, coming down and scoring to tie the football game up.
And then you score first.
Exactly. That was, if you don't get the football there first, I think that was really important, that who got to, make the statement right away. They scored in, 2 plays, I think? Yeah. It was a really great play from Blake Corum getting in the end zone there. And we talked about it, that final play for Alabama. 4th and goal from the 3-yard line. You can't draw up a more crazy finish to a game like that.
Yeah.
It comes down to this play only, and it's just poorly executed play from Alabama.
Bad snap. And they had troubles with it all game.
Mm-hmm.
Bad snap cost them their season because they had that wide. I saw something today and it was they were planning on doing an RPO and he was gonna throw the ball to the running back.
Running back coming out.
If you watch it.
He's open, yeah.
He's open. The linebacker trailing him is so far behind him, he would have no... And there was 2 on 2. 2 wide receivers blocking for him on 2 corners. And he walks in the end zone there. And luckily, another bad snap happened.
Just a lot... There was, it wasn't the prettiest game on either side. It was a... Not, I don't want to call it a sloppy game because the team still played good, but, it was just...
But special teams was very sloppy.
Yeah, exactly.
For Michigan.
And offensively, Alabama had a lot of struggles on the line of scrimmage, which you can't have in a game like that.
And they kept trying to blame it on other people.
Yeah,
the snaps. After the second one, he's like, well, Jalen Milroe's got to get that. Dude, he rolled the ball to him.
that the center, I don't know how he still had his job halfway through the game.
He just was rolling the ball to him. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 here. I mean, it was
happening frequently.
Yeah, there was snaps all over the place. They might not have been rolling on the ground, but... They weren't good snaps.
Yeah,
the whole game. He was struggling.
Such a good game. Texas-Washington, obviously, that was a very entertaining game. Michael Penix Jr. just had himself an absolute game, 430 passing yards, I believe.
Second most or something.
Yeah, he had 260 in the first half. Yeah. It looked like Washington kind of had this game in the bag. Then Quinn Ewers in Texas makes a late game run. That game comes down to the final play.
That was such a good game.
Yeah.
I was ready to fall asleep.
I did fall asleep
earlier. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to bed. All of a sudden they kick a field goal. I'm like, all right, maybe I'll stay up for this.
Yeah.
And they drive down. They got a huge stop. That 3 and out they forced there was huge. But
Washington pulls out, and now it's Washington versus Michigan in the national championship. Right now, go ahead. Yeah.
Did you see how that 3 and out went?
Yeah.
With the guy getting injured and saving 30
I know
seconds. That sucks.
It's so unfortunate that
that's the reason
that happens.
Really in the game. Yeah. That was just crazy. And then that huge pass by Quinn Ewers down the sideline. That was crazy.
Yeah, Ewers had a really good end to that game. I actually thought that they were gonna they had so much momentum at the end of that game.
Yeah.
And obviously it did not be enough. So, national championship right now. This probably will change a little bit, be based on this being the first day of open. Michigan opens at -4.5 versus Washington next Monday, January 8th. Over-unders at 55.5 as well. Where are you at with Michigan versus Washington? How confident are you for Michigan to be national champions?
The reason I liked Washington more is because I think their defense is a little worse than Texas
I would agree.
And Bama's. They're not on the same level. So I feel like we can afford to get more into a shootout type of game.
Right.
Because I think we can score easier on their defense than anybody else's in the college football playoff. So that's why I feel more comfortable playing Washington. But then again, that offense is so high-powered. And
right.
if we come out and our offense is just struggling to get going, that's going to be scary because Michael Penix is going to throw for 300 yards at least. Like, he's going to throw the ball.
The way I kind of see it is, like, I think Washington is a better, like, you'd rather play Washington than Texas, but also Washington's, like, more scarier to play than Texas.
They definitely are.
Like, they've been the underdogs for, 2 straight games now, going into the 3rd straight game, where they kind of, I don't want to say dominate the game, because obviously they, almost lost the game against Texas. But for the most part, they were in control of all game versus that Oregon game in the championship, Pac-12 championship game, and then in this game against Texas. Yeah. Like, they seemed like the better team as underdogs both times. Haven't lost a game all year. It's also going to be a completely different game plan for this Michigan defense. Like, the heavy blitz attack on Jalen Milroe to try to contain him. I don't know if that's what you want to do against Michael Penix because he makes great reads.
Yeah.
The deep ball is going to it's going to be a lot of one-on-one coverage if you're setting blitzes. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how Michigan changes up their defense.
I am too. I have a feeling they're going to go more conservative, especially because, that guy that got hurt was their starting running back.
Yeah, exactly.
So who knows how well they're going to be able to run the ball. I mean, we got a really good run defense anyway, but I can see him playing a lot more conservative, not sending these 6-7, blitz or players blitzing every time.
Because you don't really, but you also don't want to give him time. Like, you obviously want to pressure him, but I don't think you want to set up one-on-one coverage against, Rome Odunze or any of those other guys. So
yeah, I mean they have the best offensive line in the country too.
Yeah,
which is scary, but I don't know. I'm glad they play Washington, but it also scares me a lot.
Yeah,
they are a very good team.
I'm very excited to see how this one turns out. It's just crazy that Michigan is finally, they've made it to this point, playing for the national championship. It's really crazy. So let's get into the topic that we were here to discuss today, and that is the NFL playoff scenarios for Week 18. Like I said earlier, a lot can go down. Let's talk about the current standings and what teams have clinched, and then we can go from there and talk about each team's scenarios going into the final week. So in the NFC, all the teams that have clinched, the 1, 2, 3, 49ers, Cowboys, and Lions have all clinched. We don't really need to talk about if the Niners clinch the 1 seed, so I assume they're just going to sit everybody, I would guess. They already said McCaffrey's not going to play, so I assume that there won't be a lot going on there. The Cowboys, Lions, and Eagles also have clinched as the 5 seed. They have a little bit of discourse on who can get the 2 seed or not, but it seems like the Lions are probably going to be locked in at that 3 spot. And then the LA Rams have clinched as the 6th seed at 9 and 7. They still can move down to the 7th seed, however, because the Green Bay Packers would leap them if they win and the Rams lose. Moving over to the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens have clinched the 1 seed after a dominant win over the Miami Dolphins this week, so they are in at the 1. The Dolphins are still the 2 seed at 11 and 5, and then the Chiefs are the 3 seed at 10 and 6. The Cleveland Browns are the 5 seed at 11 and 5. So the Browns are going to get that top wildcard spot. Chiefs have clinched despite a really weird season. But yeah, only 4 teams have clinched in the AFC, leaving the 4 seed Jacksonville Jaguars not locked in. The 6 seed Buffalo Bills not locked in. The 7 seed Indianapolis Colts not locked in. And then you still have the Texans and Steelers looking from the outside. So let's start with the Steelers. Right now, they're the 9 seed. A huge win against Seattle last week, which kept them alive. Also extended Mike Tomlin's 17-year playoff or not having a losing season,
winning season,
which is just that it'll never happen. He'll never go under 500.
He's never gonna lose.
It's so funny. Pittsburgh is in a really weird spot because they are unfortunately in a situation where they need to win and need help. The same thing happened last year with the Steelers, where they went into Week 18. needing a win, but also needing a loss from another team. They did their part, won the game, but didn't get help from other teams, and they missed out on the playoffs, which sucks.
Yeah.
And that's the worst scenario. It happened to the Lions as well last year. So these are the scenarios for Pittsburgh to get in. They play the Baltimore Ravens. Now, off just hearing that, you might think, oh, well, what are their chances? Ravens clinched the 1 seed. So there's a world where they sit everybody.
People.
But it is, a in-division game, battle of the AFC North. Like, this is a hardcore rivalry. Steelers already beat the Ravens once this year, so they probably don't want to get swept. Lamar's kind of, in the MVP favorite. What if he sits and somebody else behind him has a huge game? Like, I don't know what's going to happen there. What do you think that they're West guys? The Ravens?
I don't think they're gonna. I really don't think so. But it would be the smart thing to do.
It would be the smart thing to do.
Lamar gets hurt. What's happening?
Exactly. They're
Super
screwed.
Bowl hopes are screwed.
Yeah. Which you obviously don't want to happen.
Right. So you never want to see an injury, but an injury like that would be really bad.
It would be terrible. That's why I think that they probably won't start their guys.
Yeah. Or maybe just play them for a quarter or something.
Maybe it's a first half kind of thing. Who knows?
See where we're at,
But this is what they need to happen. So Pittsburgh needs to win a game, and these are the other scenarios. A lot of different things can happen. Pittsburgh win plus a Bills loss to the Miami Dolphins. The Bills, by the way, are in the weirdest scenario ever, where they can either be the 2 seed or they can miss the playoffs.
Yeah,
which is just the craziest thing ever. So yeah, Pittsburgh win plus a Buffalo loss. Right now, that's probably your most likely scenario, just because the Bills are playing a Miami team. That's going to be a good game. These other games are a bit more lopsided.
Is it in Buffalo?
I believe. Let me check. I got it pulled up right here. It is. Oh, they put it on Monday Night Football. That's nice. Or Sunday Night Football. It is in Miami.
That's huge.
But Buffalo 3-point favorites on the road.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, definitely. So yeah, that Buffalo loss plus Pittsburgh win. Second scenario is Pittsburgh win plus Jacksonville loss or tie. Jacksonville, however, is playing against the Tennessee Titans. It's on the road. It's not the easiest game in the world, but also the Titans are one of the worst teams in the NFL. Who knows if they really even want to try to get a win, try to get a higher draft pick. But Trevor Lawrence didn't play this past week.
That's what I was going to say.
We don't know if he's going to play.
That's huge.
That's huge, and it probably also changes the line of this game. Right now, the Jags are 5.5-point favorites on the road. I would guess if C.J. Beathard is starting, that is a tighter line.
Yeah.
Probably still in favor of Jacksonville, but that is really interesting. And then the final scenario, well, I guess the final one that involves Pittsburgh just winning straight up is a Pittsburgh win plus the Texans and Colts tying, which...
Pretty unlikely.
I don't really like going over the tie scenarios because they're just...
It just doesn't really happen.
But also, 2 years ago, the Steelers almost missed the playoffs because of the tie between the Raiders and the Chargers. That final game, if those two teams would have just tied, the Steelers would have got booted from the playoffs. It looked like it
was gonna.
And that was the last game of the season, too. Oh, that would have been so crazy. So here is another, though, situation where the Steelers, I actually missed this one, they can get in with a loss. Mm-hmm. Jacksonville loses to Tennessee. Denver wins against... I'm going to have to check to see who they play because I honestly don't.
I saw that earlier, but I didn't know who they played.
Denver plays against the Raiders. So it's got to be something with common opponent record or division record or something. So a Jacksonville loss, Denver wins against the Raiders, and Houston, Indianapolis doesn't end in a tie. The Steelers would sneak into the playoffs.
Which would be the same scenario as 2 years ago.
Yes, which it definitely would be.
I'm sure there was other things that needed to happen with the tie, but
so unfortunately, if the Steelers win, but Buffalo and Jacksonville both win, then they will be missing out on the playoffs. Right now, though, if you're just looking at teams to get into the playoffs, the Steelers are at odds-wise. Let's pull it up. Plus 122 to make the playoffs, which is not crazy.
They have a 25% chance.
Which I think they're leaning on the Buffalo and Miami game being a tight game right now. Like I said, the line for that game is Buffalo -3. So the Steelers, I would say, have a better chance to get in than they did last year. Because I think last year it was just
they needed a few things.
All the games were also obviously the worst team wasn't going to win type situation. So let's talk about the other teams in the AFC because, like I said, the Buffalo Bills, they have the weirdest scenario ever. Right now, they are the 6th seed at 10-6, but they are playing. They own the tiebreaker over Miami. So if Buffalo beats Miami this week, they jump up to the 2 seed. But if they lose and the Steelers win,
they're out.
They are out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which is just the craziest
swing of
2 seed versus missing the playoffs. How is that even possible? They also could get in though if they lose and Pittsburgh just loses.
Yep.
They would still get in. If Jacksonville just loses, they get in. Or if Houston and Indianapolis tie. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to count all the ties. So that is I feel like Buffalo will still get in. Mm-hmm. Like, even if they lose, I feel like one of Pittsburgh or Jacksonville losing is, I don't know. God, that's so tough.
It's so weird. There's so many different scenarios, and there's so many, different, or teams that could get different, seeds.
Yes.
It's weird.
It's really
they
weird.
Bump around so much with just one game changing.
Exactly. And, there's a scenario where Miami and Buffalo play again in round 1 of the playoffs. If Miami wins and Buffalo falls to the 7th seed, and still sneaks in, they would play round 1.
It's just fun. It's crazy.
It is really crazy. So the one that is a little bit more straightforward is just the battle of the AFC South. Right now, all 3 teams, Jacksonville, Houston, and Indianapolis, are all 9-7. The Jags are in first place right now.
You win and you're in.
They win and they're in. They have the easiest path as well because they're playing Tennessee. Like we said, if you win, they win the division. Now, if they lose this game, they can still get in just because of tiebreakers. So if they lose against Tennessee, as long as Pittsburgh loses,
Pittsburgh and Buffalo,
they still get in. But Buffalo would still both get in over Pittsburgh. As long as Houston, Indianapolis, because the loser of Houston, Indy would be out. Jacksonville would be getting over them. And then Indy, Houston, Indy. That I like when games like this happen because it's 2 teams that are if you win, you're in. If you lose, you're out. That's always fun. So for the Houston Texans, they have to win the division. They need a win and Jacksonville to lose. So it's not going to be a clinched home game or anything for them if they win. But if they just win, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
No matter what, which is huge. And then Indianapolis is the same way. To win the division, they need to win and Jacksonville needs to lose. But they're just like Houston. If they win, they're in the playoffs. Yeah. So pretty high stakes in this Indianapolis-Houston game. I want to check the odds here.
If they lose, they still can get in, right?
Indianapolis or Houston?
Houston and Indianapolis, either one. Can they? If Pittsburgh loses,
they have to tie. There's no scenario where the loser of that game gets in. Yeah. It would have to be a tie. They would have to tie and Pittsburgh would have to lose. Yeah. So probably not going to happen. So that definitely just seems like only one of those 2 teams are getting in.
Yeah.
Games in Indianapolis. Colts are -1.5 right now.
Is CJ Stroud playing?
I think CJ Stroud is returning, yes. Or did he play this past week?
I think he
did. I think he did come back this week. He did. So that's going to be really interesting. I also think a lot on the line there is for Coach of the Year. Shane Steichen's been in big talks about that. If he right now he's plus 1,000. Damn, Kevin Stefanski's going to win that thing.
Is he really?
-950 right now.
Really?
He just won it 2 or 3 years ago.
For the Browns?
Yeah, when they went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I had a future on Dan Campbell to win Coach of the Year, from the beginning of the year, and he was plus 1,200, and I had a pretty good cash out 4 weeks ago, and I didn't take it.
What's he at right now?
Plus 1,900. He's in 4th place.
That seems crazy to
me. I mean, I get Stefanski. They just had so much go on this year with injuries.
That makes sense.
And Flacco.
The Lions just dominated this.
Yeah, we won the division.
For the first time in a long time.
First time in 30 years.
That should be rewarded.
That's how I feel. They did feel that way for a while, but this league, it's on a week-to-week basis, I guess. If that loss to the Cowboys, definitely
really hurt,
he would have gotten bumped up a little bit because then we would have been in contention for the 1 seed. So that's basically it for all of the AFC scenarios. Like I said, 9 total teams in contention still. Who do you like out of the AFC right now? Obviously you can pick the Steelers if you want, but who do you like to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC?
Shoot, if the Steelers stick with Mason Rudolph, I like them. No,
he's been balling.
He's been balling. I saw something.
He's gonna start this week too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the Steelers don't make playoffs or something, he could be gone. Go sign to some other team.
Oh,
really? Starting
really?
quarterback, yeah. Somewhere like Minneapolis.
He might
need someone.
What do you think? Like if they win and they get into the playoffs, like
I think you gotta ride with him.
Does he keep starting?
Unless he has a terrible game.
Right, and they still win somehow.
Yeah, but I think you ride with him as long as you can.
Yeah, I don't really see how you can go away.
Obviously, I think with Kenny back, I think you got to keep him on a short leash. But
Definitely. But like, what if it's like he wins him a playoff game type of game, they lose in the second round, and he's like still didn't have a bad game? Like, what's the plan going into next year? It still has to be Kenny Pickett, right?
I think.
Like, I would be kind of shocked.
I think they go into training camp with like a
battle.
Like, nobody's guaranteed a spot.
Right. Because, I mean, even you look at Philly, and but that's such a different scenario. Like Foles versus Carson. Like Carson Wentz was elite at that time. Kenny Pickett is not. So,
no,
that's a really weird situation depending on how the season ends.
But I like the Ravens. I really think the Ravens are just so much better than any other AFC team right now. They're so hot, and Lamar is playing so well. I think it's going to be hard to beat them, especially if they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they probably have the race in the NFC, I think, could be tight, potentially.
Yeah.
But the Ravens, I think, right now are like the team.
They're the team.
The last 2 weeks, they've played the 49ers and the Dolphins, two of technically the best other teams in the NFL, seeding-wise, and they dominated both games.
Yeah, I mean, they beat Miami like 56
to 19
or something.
Which was a scorigami, too.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was. Pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean,
they dominated them.
They dominated, and Lamar answered all the MVP talks. Had 5 touchdown passes, 300 some yards. Had a perfect quarterback rating. They're scary.
They are. They're very good. They're a very good team.
I think it's definitely safe to say that, and the Ravens have not had playoff success in Lamar Jackson's career. I think that they've won one playoff game in his career. It hasn't always been pretty for them come playoff time, but also this is easily the best Ravens team.
Yeah,
100%. That we've seen.
The defense is stacked.
Their defense is stacked, and they have the best weapons that they've probably ever had under Lamar Jackson, too. I mean, Zay Flowers has been phenomenal. OBJ is having some sort of resurgence. Even with Mark Andrews out, Isaiah Likely has been doing great.
Well.
For sure. I would say the Ravens as well.
Yeah, they're so well-rounded, I think they... I mean, especially with the AFC kind of being a weaker year.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the Dolphins, but...
Everyone knows that they're kind of fraudulent. Yeah. The Chiefs are having the worst year that we've seen under Mahomes.
The AFC North beat each other up.
The AFC South, kind of sucks.
Garbage.
Who knows who's even good in that division. I do think, though, I like the Ravens. Obviously the Ravens are the best team. Sleeper team. I said this 2 weeks ago now, and me saying this right now definitely makes me seem like a bandwagon, I'm hopping on it because they looked so good the last 2 weeks.
I do remember when you said
But weeks ago, I said this on the podcast, actually. The Browns are the sneaky team out of the AFC.
Joe Flacco was balling.
And he also just, there really is so much value in having a guy that's been there before.
Yeah.
Having a guy that has taken a team deep into the playoffs.
To a Super Bowl.
It wasn't based on him.
Super Bowl.
He didn't win them the game. He just does what he has to do to put the team in a position to win.
Yeah.
Game manager as S. That's been a very controversial tag over this past couple weeks. I don't think it's a bad tag at all.
No.
I think if you are a good game manager, you're probably going to be a really good quarterback.
Tom Brady was a game manager.
Exactly. It's not a negative term. It's something Cam Newton's trying to make it a negative term, I guess. Maybe he is. I don't even know if that's what he meant by that. But
it's...
I don't think it's bad.
No.
It's actually good.
Depending on the team depending on what team it is, I don't know how good the Ravens are with a game manager, but Lamar does so much for that.
Exactly.
Team. But
the Ravens probably aren't as good with a game manager. A team like the Cleveland Browns, who have a really good run game. Their defense is one of, if not the best in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
They have probably the best player on defense in the entire NFL, I'm pretty sure he's the favorite to win Depoy right now, and Myles Garrett. Let me check. Yeah, he is.
That's
minus 250 though, so it's tight. TJ Watt's still kind of right there, plus 450. That's not too bad. Micah Parsons is second at plus 350. So it's probably going to be Myles Garrett, I would guess. But yeah, like I think that the Browns, and like I said, it's easy to say now because they have looked so good the past couple weeks. But I've been on this. Like they are a team that just is built to go on a playoff run. Great defense, kind of getting healthier as we've seen.
I can totally see it too. I mean, I don't like it. They're just so well-rounded.
Exactly. And they went up against a New York Jets defense the other day and exposed them.
Honestly, I think they're the second best team in the AFC behind the Ravens.
I am right there with you.
Like, they're just such a well-rounded team with Flacco, and they're playing good. It's just scary.
It is. And if I'm a team other than the Ravens, that's the last team I want to see.
Yeah.
Is the Cleveland Browns.
100%, especially right now. They're hot.
Like, I do not want to play that team. I'd rather play Mahomes than that team, I think. Yeah. But I'm not going to count out Mahomes.
No, you can't.
If I had to, like, if you're really going to look for some value at, what team to win the AFC, I can see if you can pull it up right now. The Kansas City Chiefs to win the AFC are now they're still second at plus 420. Okay, that's kind of surprising.
Weird, but
the Browns are plus 2,000. I bet on the Browns to win the Super Bowl weeks back or 2 weeks ago. Probably should have just picked them to win the AFC instead of win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because that's just kind of crazy to win the whole thing. But yeah, they're plus 2,000 right now to win the AFC. But yeah, the Chiefs, I do think that like I've fallen into Mahomes is Mahomes, like a little bit too hard. Whereas like it is very clear that not having offensive weapons in the NFL, the current day NFL, is so detrimental to your offense.
I mean, even Kelsey is just been playing like garbage.
He's just regressed,
and stuff.
And you can't lean on Kelsey as much when your other guys are not like
you don't worry about
their wide receiver 3 or 4s on any other team.
Yeah.
Like all of their guys are.
Yeah.
Marcus Valdez-Scantling should not be like in the NFL anymore. Like it's actually crazy. So I hate leaning on it's Mahomes is Mahomes because I've done that basically all year. But they just continue to struggle and it's like how can you trust them to go on a playoff run? It is. But like I said,
their defense they're good, but they're not elite. And then
they have a great player in Chris Jones.
But there's nobody there to help Mahomes on the offensive side of the ball. And their offensive line isn't great.
No, not at all.
Like
their defense was good to start the year. It was actually one of the top units in the entire NFL, and it slowly has gotten worse and worse. And the offense has not slowly got worse and worse. It just has gotten a lot worse. Yeah, it's just not very good. It hasn't really been good all year, honestly. Yeah. Now, I don't think it's, like I said, I don't think it's on Mahomes. I know after the season, we're going to see a lot of discussion on, especially if things don't end well for the Chiefs, like that say Mahomes is not the best quarterback in the NFL anymore.
Which he clearly is.
He still is the best quarterback. Like just because he didn't win MVP, like he's still the best QB in the NFL.
Yes.
But the Chiefs are going to have to get a receiver this offseason.
Whether it's through free agency or
the
trading
draft.
up in the draft or something and getting one of the top end receivers.
You have to.
They need something there. They need to give Mahomes help.
Exactly. And I assume they will do that. I would be pretty shocked if not because you kind of thought last year without Tyreek Hill, like they would be able to survive and kind of they changed their offense up. They went from a lot of deep balls to, hey, we're just going to do a lot of 10 to 15-yard passes and just dominate in the middle of the field. And they were so good at it last year. But even like you lost, like this isn't a big loss, but like Juju Smith-Schuster was like a pretty key role in that. Like he had one of the better years of his career. He left. Travis Kelce regressed. Injury to Jerick McKinnon, he's been worse. Mecole Hardman wasn't there for the first half of the year. Like, you still lost the key guys in that offense. Kadarius Toney is so much worse than he was last year.
Terrible.
Like, he's so bad.
Can't catch the ball.
Justin Watson, I'm pretty sure, is their, like, leading wide receiver, like, yards-wise.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Is that guy a top 3 receiver on, like, any other playoff team?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Maybe top 3, but not top 2. Like,
no.
It's just, it's weird. They're in a weird spot.
I didn't know who he was 2 years ago.
Yeah, I definitely did not know who he was that long ago. So we'll see what happens with the Chiefs. But yeah, I would have to say that I'm with you. The Ravens are the squad. I'm not too confident in the Dolphins. I like the Browns. I'm not confident in any AFC South team, like especially I don't really like the Jacksonville. I think Houston is like the one team that I could see maybe like winning a game
making a run
if they win it, you know, like just from a huge game from Stroud and that offense, because the defense hasn't been that bad either. The Colts, I mean, like they've surprised me all year.
They have. They're a very surprising team.
But
I can see them maybe keeping a game close.
Yeah.
Maybe squeaking one out, but nothing after that.
That's kind of how I feel too. Okay, let's move on to the NFC. Like I said earlier, it's a little bit more clear cut. The Niners are the 1 seed. Like I said, Cowboys, Lions, Eagles can still move around. Cowboys are currently the 2 seed, and the Eagles are currently the 5 seed. But Dallas plays Washington, and Philly plays the Giants. So it kind of just seems like both of those teams will win and stay where they're at. So Philly playing on no home playoff game for Philly potentially in these playoffs, which it's pretty crazy. They fumbled the bag hardcore losing against Arizona.
Yeah.
And it makes the Lions' loss versus the Cowboys hurt so much more because the Lions would be the 2 seed right now and not have to play a potential game against the LA Rams, which just terrifies me. It scares me so bad. Like, I know a lot of Lions fans are out there like, we shouldn't be scared of the Rams. Like, we're a better team than the Rams, which I agree.
Yeah.
Lions are a better team than the Rams.
Yes, they are.
You know what I've seen happen in Ford Field 30,000 times in my life? Matthew Stafford, 4th quarter game-winning drive. But it used to be on my team, and that's going to happen if we play them. He's going to lead a game-winning, 2-minute drill, no timeouts drive down the field, and they'll win. And it's going to be so awful in Ford. It's just like the first playoff, like it's cool. You
can't write it up.
You can't, and I think that's why, the controversial call or whatever, like this is what the NFL wants.
Yeah.
They want Rams, Lions, first round playoffs for the storyline. I get it. But let's take a look at the Rams because like I said, they are the only, they're the other wild card team that is clinched with the Eagles, but they're not locked into that 6 seed. Right now they are 9-7. They're playing against the 49ers this week. Now, like we said earlier, Niners are probably going to sit everybody. They're still a really good team. At the end of the day. Like, the Niners are 3-point favorites right now with McCaffrey already ruled out. I would take a guess that Brock Purdy's going to be out. I would take a guess that one of Debo or Brandon Ayuk will be out, if not both. I mean, I guess you can't sit, like, everybody because you just don't have enough guys. But it's not an easy win for the Rams to stay into that 6 seed.
I don't see any of their top guys playing much, though.
Right. That's true. Like it'll be a quarter or a half.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel too. But there's a world where if they do lose that game, the team that currently is in the 7 seed, the Green Bay Packers, who are 8-8, they would pass the Rams up to the 6 seed. Here's the Packers, though. Their chance to get into the playoffs. Like I said, they are the 7 seed. So if they just win, they're in. They play the Bears. The Bears, low-key, got nothing to lose.
No.
Like, they're 7-9 right now. They've honestly been playing some pretty good football. They just locked in the first overall pick from Carolina, so they're not trying to lose to get a better pick with theirs.
Yeah.
Who cares if they get picked 7 or 9? They have the first one. Like, they're just going to have another top 10 pick anyways, no matter what happens. Chicago can't get into the playoffs. But a division game like this, it's like the Lions last year. Like, you just, if we can stop them from getting in, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened, Green Bay versus Detroit last year. So Chicago's now in that situation.
How would you feel about a Green Bay versus Detroit first round?
And that's what I was going to get at if Green Bay wins. It's kind of seeming like it's going to be Green Bay or LA. Now, the Seahawks are still involved, which we can talk about them too because the Lions have not had success against Seattle over the last several years, especially at home. I would rather see Green Bay.
Yeah.
I think Green Bay, though, they're like they could go on a run, I think.
I like Jordan Love.
I like Love too. I'm a Love believer.
I am too.
And Jaden Reed has been balling for them this year. Like I said, he leads all rookies in the NFL with touchdowns, receiving touchdowns, which is really cool. He got hurt though, and I don't know if he's going to play in this game against Chicago. If I had to rank the 3 teams of like who I want to play for the Lions, I go Green Bay 1, Seattle 2, Rams 3. I want to play Green Bay because on Thanksgiving, the Lions have not won in Thanksgiving in like 6 years. We were red hot. We smoked Green Bay in like week 3. And they came into Ford Field and stomped on us and made us look like fools on Thanksgiving. And we got to get revenge for that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with with playing against Green Bay. It's an in-division rivalry. Now, if we would have swept Green Bay, I'd be a little bit more hesitant to play them.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be kind of scared to play them.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times.
So yeah, I'm gonna say I would rather. Well, I guess Minnesota technically is still in that too because they haven't been eliminated yet, even though they need a lot of help. But for Green Bay to get in, like I said, all they gotta do is win to get in. But they also could get in if Minnesota, Seattle, Tampa / New Orleans lose. Lot needs to happen for that to happen. But if they just beat Chicago, they get in. Quickly, Minnesota, they need a lot of help. They lost last week was Minnesota Green Bay. That game kind of decided who gets knocked out. Minnesota technically is still alive. Really? They're playing the Lions. The Lions are pissed about what happened this past week. They're not going to sit nobody because technically we still have a shot at the 2 seed, which 2 versus 3 seed can be very crucial in a potential second round divisional matchup if the 2 and 3 play. But Minnesota needs to beat the Lions, which won't happen. They need Green Bay to lose. They need Seattle to lose. And they need Tampa / New Orleans to lose. Lot needs to happen there for Minnesota, led by question mark to get into the playoffs. They've had 4 different QBs.
Who started for them this week?
Jaron Hall started, and then they put in Nick Mullins at halftime because Jaron Hall was so bad.
He was bad. That was pretty.
And Nick Mullins is really bad, but I kind of respect Nick Mullins.
Yeah.
He just throws picks and comes down the very first play of the next drive and throws another crazy pass. He does not care.
He don't care.
It's I'm gonna try to get it to Jefferson, even if he's triple team and it's gonna get picked. He threw 4 picks.
That last drive, he threw it to him 4 times.
Yeah, and that drive against the Lions, they were moving the ball downfield, and then he just throws a crazy over the middle ball. You don't need to throw that pass, but he's going for it all. I respect
he's just
it.
Trying to win games.
I would hate him if I was a Vikings fan, but it's kind of fun football to watch. And then, like I said, the Seattle Seahawks, who currently are 8-8, they are sitting as the 8 seed after losing a heartbreaker to the Steelers last week in a game that honestly was kind of dominated by the Steelers. I would say
they played really well.
Seattle needs to win, and Green Bay needs to lose, which could happen. It definitely could happen. They're playing against Arizona, who Arizona clearly is showing that they have nothing to lose. They just beat Philly this past week. They bumped themselves back from the 2nd pick to the 3rd pick. And then Green Bay is playing Chicago, which is definitely still not an easy game for them by any means. So taking a look at who the odds are looking like for making the playoffs, starting off with Green Bay, they are currently at -210 to get into the playoffs. So I think that is I assume they're -210 against Green Bay. That's their money line. They think that they're going to beat or against Chicago. Looking at Seattle, they are currently +270 to get in. So obviously, like I said earlier, they need a little bit of help. And then Minnesota is literally not even on here. So they just don't think Minnesota's going to make the playoffs, which I find pretty funny.
If they make it, dude, that'd be nuts.
It would be, yeah.
There would be so much shit has to happen for that.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty crazy if they, and it's just not going to happen.
No.
And the last scenario is in the NFC South. Just like the AFC South, there are 3 teams still alive here to get in. And honestly, the Saints can still get in as a wild card team as well, which is pretty crazy. So even though I said the NFC is a bit more clear-cut, there's 12 teams still alive in the NFC.
Which is crazy.
Which is really crazy. Let's start off with the least likely one, the Atlanta Falcons, who are playing... Oh, no, actually, it's not that least likely. So right now, I can turn this way. Right now, in the playoff picture, the Buccaneers are the 4 seed. They lost to the New Orleans Saints last week, which was a crucial loss because they would have clinched the division if they won. However, they still own the tiebreaker, so they're the 4 seed at 8-8. The Saints are also 8-8 as the 9 seed. The Falcons are the 12 seed at 7-9 after losing to the Bears last week. Excuse me. The Falcons play New Orleans. This is going to be a huge game. If the Falcons win, they need Tampa Bay to lose to get in.
Yep.
But that game right there really determines a lot. New Orleans is in the same boat as Atlanta. They have to win, but they also need Tampa Bay to lose. So it looks like New Orleans can't get in with, or no, they can get in with.
No tie and a loss.
Yeah, so if they can get in the wild card if they win, and Seattle and Green Bay both lose if Tampa Bay, ends up winning the division. So there's a world where New Orleans can make it as a wild card team, which I would love to play New Orleans in the first round. So that's all.
Nice.
We smoked them weeks back. And And then taking a look at Tampa Bay, theirs is a lot simpler. Just win. Yep. Win and get in.
Win, you're in.
To clinch it with a wild card berth, it involves a tie, so that is, it's not going to be as
Not
likely
really
there.
realistic.
Tampa Bay, they play the Carolina Panthers, the worst team in the NFL. Just clinched the 1 seed. They're not it's not a locked in win though.
No,
I wouldn't lock it in. They don't have their own pick, so it's like they're still just trying to play. It doesn't really matter that much.
Is Carolina hurt or not? Right.
He got hurt in their last game. Yeah. I can't remember if he went back in or not.
I don't
though.
remember either.
You honestly probably would rather have Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
I don't know. Bryce Young kind of ended the year a little strong. He kind of had
did.
some good games towards the end of the year. And then, like we said, Falcons Saints play, which right now the Saints are 3-point favorites at home against Atlanta. That's on 1 o'clock Sunday. That's going to be a really exciting game. So in the NFC, who do you like in the NFC to go up against the Baltimore Ravens potentially?
I like the 49ers, but I can really see the Eagles making it as a wild card team and just making a run. I'm not gonna count them out.
Yeah, that's kind of
the Lions Lions are a pretty obvious pick. Cowboys could too.
Right.
I mean, if I had to pick one team, I think it's gonna be the 49ers, but a sleeper team, not really sleeper, but a wild card team that I think can.
Well, I think it is sleeper because of the way they've been playing. They've lost 4 out of their last 5 games. Yeah. Everyone's kind of out on the Eagles right now. Now would be the time if you are still an Eagles believer to kind of go in on them right now to win the NFC. They are the 3rd highest odds team at plus 550. So if you like that,
I can't believe they're over the Lions.
I know it is because they would have to play San Fran in the second round, which is a much tougher route, obviously. I think that I agree with you. I think Philly is you definitely cannot count them out. A 49ers Eagles divisional round matchup would be awesome because obviously they played in the NFC Championship last year. There's a lot of beef there between Deebo Samuel and the rest of them guys. The Brock Purdy got injured last year, and that was kind of the reason why the 49ers didn't make the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens in that game. It sucks to pick both 1 seeds, but it's just so clear that the Ravens and 49ers are the best teams in their conferences. Yeah. Last year we saw both 1 seeds go to the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and Eagles, which is interesting. Could happen again this year. But yeah, I think that the 49ers are the clear best team. They had that little spurt in the middle of the year where they did not play good. Other than that, they have looked all but great. Yeah. Number 1 seed, the game against the Ravens, obviously, Ravens dominated them there, but as far as the NFC goes, I like them more than every other team.
Yeah. When you get into playoffs, and it's a different game.
Yeah. I think that the Cowboys still are you can't count them out. I do. They scare me a little bit. I would take the Cowboys and the Eagles both as more favorites to win the NFC than the Lions. I will be honest. I think that this game against the Cowboys, though, the way that this ended for the Lions, this is low key kind of beneficial. This is going to add a little extra spark to them, which, they don't need it. This is the first, they have potential to break a 30-year playoff winning streak. I think that should be motivation enough. But this is just a little bit extra.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of salt in the wound.
And it's going to piss them off. Dan Campbell in his press conference yesterday said he has controlled fury right now, which is just a very interesting term to use.
What do you mean by that?
He's mad, but he can use it in good ways is kind of how I interpretate that. But yeah, I think that the Lions, they have a chance. It just depends on who we play in the first round. And out of the wild card teams, like you said, it's got to be the Eagles. We've seen a wild card team kind of make a run in each playoffs in the last several years. So the Eagles aren't your typical wild card team. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl last year. But yeah, I mean, I really could see a world where the Rams or Packers wins a game. It's different than the AFC wildcard teams where it's I think the Browns are the only one that's going to do anything. Whereas in the NFC, I could see if it ends up being Rams, Packers, Eagles as the 3 wildcard teams, I could see any of those teams winning a game, especially playing against the Lions or the Cowboys in first round. Those are 2 teams that could get upset.
It could happen.
We'll see what happens. So final Super Bowl prediction winner. Going into Week 18, obviously we can do this again once we know the actual playoff bracket, but who knows? It could be Steelers-Lions. There's potential for it.
I'm going to go Ravens, Eagles.
Okay.
I'm going to take the Ravens to win the Super Bowl.
I like that. Yeah. I mean, they seem like the best team.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, just to be different, I will go Niners, Browns. I really do think the Browns, but I think if they play the Niners win. Yeah. So I'll say 49ers over the Browns in the Super Bowl.
I like that. I mean, I like the Browns. They could make a run. I think,
like I said, they're the
only AFC wildcard team.
Exactly, and they're honestly the team I like the most in the AFC, other than the Ravens.
Yeah.
They would probably have to play the Ravens in a round 2 matchup, which you wouldn't probably not want to have if you're them. But who knows? We'll see what happens with that. Willie, thanks for coming on this week to talk playoff scenarios and talk about the college football playoff. Everyone, I hope you had a great new year. Hopefully 2024 is off to a great start for you. And we are out. Peace.